Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study. Plain and simple, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Currently, we are in the prophecy of Amos. Now, the way I am going through the writings of the prophets, okay, the writings of the prophets. This is the section of the Old Testament we are currently going through, which is also the last section of the Old Testament. And just a FYI, this is will be the last section in terms of our complete journey through the entire Bible. Then we will start over with the New Testament, the Gospels, down the road here. So the writings of the prophets are divided into, and this is by scholars. This is not by God. In other words, God did not set it up this way. The way that the books are arranged in the Bible, there's two factors. One, Old and New Testament, and then within the Old Testament, it is historical from writings from Genesis to Esther, which gives us the history up until just after the Babylonian exile. I think it's important to kind of go over that so that we understand the mindset as we're reading through the Old Testament. The Babylonian exile. Maybe I can give you a better picture here with this. This is sort of a chart. Well, let's do it this way. If we go all the way to what is called the last book of the Old Testament, Malachi, and the approximate date is about 430 BC. Now, the AC and the BC, pretty much around the birth of Christ, kind of it's the human history focus point in terms of how they listed here. Now, if you're reading the Jehovah's Witness Bible, they would refer to it as the actually they would say BCE, and the Jehovah's Witness didn't come up with this. The idea is they would say before the Common Era. Okay, I'm not going to get off on all of that. The idea is predominantly the thought is you start with the birth of Christ, around the birth of Christ. So if you move forward, that's how when we say we are in the year 2023, that is 2,000 years after the birth of Christ. Now, in this case, as we're studying through the Old Testament, they start and go backwards. They start the timeline backwards. So this 430 years, when they say BC, is 430 years before the birth of Christ. And then as we track it on, as you can see, it increases, but moving back in history. So it could be a little confusing. You just have to remember that as these dates are increasing, it means that we're moving back through time. Now, right around this time here, if you look at, let's go to this one here which says the fall of Jerusalem. And as you can see, right next to it here is Jeremiah. The date is like 586 BC. So 586 years before the birth of Christ, Jerusalem fell. Now this is an important time in history. It is the Babylonian exile. This is when you can almost say the turn of human events. This was the turn of the human events. We will get into this later in the book of Daniel when he talks about the vision of Daniel. So those of you, if you want to read ahead in the book of Daniel, he gives a timeline from around this period. Actually, Daniel's, if you read the second chapter, you see the image that Nebuchadnezzar saw, that Daniel interpreted. This was the turn of events where the Babylonian Empire would be kind of the mark of the first of world dominating kingdoms. Now, Assyrian, Egypt, they were mighty kingdoms, they were powerful kingdoms, but they didn't dominate the world. Babylon, and then you have Nebuchadnezzar was one of the first world dominating kingdoms. And so as you move forward through this time, that's the image all the way until the coming of Jesus Christ. So this is important here. Okay. Another way of looking at it is the list of the kingdoms here, which is important because you have the northern kingdoms, and then you have the southern kingdoms. So if you kind of go back, I know this might be a little tedious, but I think it's important to understand. So when we go back all the way to this time, I'm going to parallel this. And the reason why I'm doing this is because the prophetic voice, okay, is important. In other words, the writing of the prophets is the beginning of God's prophetic warning against Israel, warning them to repent, warning them to turn from their wicked ways. And it is also prophecies that's going to tell of the judgment because they won't turn, and the future plan and purpose of God for Israel. So pretty much all of the writings of the prophets are going to have those elements in there. So when we talk about then, let's say here, when we look at this first set of kings here, Saul being the first king of Israel, and then Ishbosheth, he very short time, he was Saul's son, and then there's David, and then Solomon. Now, as you can see how this chart to me kind of accurately portrays it is, this is when Israel was one nation. In other words, David ruled over all of the king of the nation of Israel. But then we come to Solomon's son, Rehoboam. And because of his foolishness, okay, and he does evil, but mainly because of his foolishness, then the nation split. And from this time, Rehoboam, okay, let's go back to our chart. So as you can see, where we are with, so look at around Samuel. Well, this is kind of the timeline of the different books of the Bible. And so about 10,011, well, not 11, but let's see here. Let's start with Saul. About 10,050, like that, Saul becomes king. And remember, all this time during the reign of David. And then we come to, now this is a chronicle of the books of the Bible with the major stories. So here we come to Saul, and I want you to see the timeline here. Right here, around 967, right? Maybe 967, 970. Solomon becomes king, right? So now we come through his reign, pretty much the building of the temple. Now we come to his death, and remember, so we see the rise, his son Rehoboam, and this is where the kingdom split, right here, at around 931 BC, so 930 years before Christ. All right. So all of this time, again, I want you to see the kind of the mindset of the writings of the prophet. So when we come to the kings, now the nation is split from Rehoboam, and then Jeroboam takes was then becomes the northern kingdoms. In Jesus' day, it was around Galilee. Okay, Samaria becomes the capital. So it's a whole history there. And so the kingdom, it remains divided, northern and southern kingdom, until the Babylonian exile. Now, from this time on, the kingdom of Israel is never the same, even to this present day. They're never the same. They're never a freestanding kingdom. In other words, they're always under the rule of something. The four kingdoms, whether it's Babylon, the Medes and Persians, Grecians, Romans, and even to this day, they're cut off in AD 70. Rome cut off Israel, destroyed Israel, and from that time they've been cut off covenant-wise from God. 1947, Israel regrouped, became a nation again, but they're still cut off from a covenant perspective from God. Now, so all of these kings here, as you can see, and we go through them from each book. Now, we'll come across the kings from each of their book. So Amos, and as we come down to Amos, now again, if you notice in 853 BC, he has Obadiah. I'm not going to tackle Obadiah until after we go through Isaiah. And I'll get into the more details why. There is kind of, and the reason why some listed here and opposed to others listed earlier or later, okay, I'll get into that later with Obadiah. Because as you can see, Obadiah is mentioned here, but I'm not going to deal with that until after we go through the book of Isaiah. All right, now, let's see here. Where's Amos? Oh, Amos, where you at? So, last time we did the book of Joel, okay, in our last couple of studies, then that's 835 BC. So as you can see right now, Amos is what we're going to study, get into now. And Amos is around 766 BC, followed by Jonah. Jonah is going to be a fascinating book. And then Hosea. So as you can see the timeline. Now, the reason why I am doing it this way is because if you look at how the books are arranged in the Bible, okay, your Old Testament listing, they take the major, what they call the major prophets. So Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel, they're considered the major prophets. And then the rest of the minor prophets, okay? I don't, let's see if I can get a better, let me get a better app and to kind of go through and show you why I'm doing this. Let's go to this one here. I'll try this one. This Bible app gives me trouble. However, it has one of the best ways of the Bible listing. Okay. All right. So as you can see, Old Testament, New Testament. What we're interested in, if you can see this, is, okay, so here begins Isaiah, which is called the major prophets. So Isaiah, Jeremiah, Lamentations actually probably the more part of Jeremiah, but we'll get to that when we get to that book. So same time period, and then Ezekiel and Daniel. Okay, now so these Daniel and Ezekiel actually were around the same time period, and then you have Hosea. Now so as you can look at this here, you have Hosea, Joel, right? Now, what's interesting about this is that all of these books here, so from Hosea to here, all right? So Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, and then Zephaniah. So these books, and this is why I'm doing it in a canonical order. I mean, an order. I know, but and chronological order. Okay, that they're going to be more. These books that I list here are going to be more around the period before and after Isaiah. Okay, before and after Isaiah. And then Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi are post-Babylonian um, um, prophets. So that's going to go back to my time here. This one only goes to up to these kings go up to the Babylonian Empire. Let's go back to my timeline here. So if we go to the Babylonian Empire, and all of these books of as you can see, what is referred to as the minor prophet. Notice, let me go back, and I said because we're going to start, and this is kind of a good play-by-play. Where am I at here? Okay, so here we go. Now you saw that list there. We have Amos, which we're going to start. Then we have Jonah. Then we have Hosea. Okay, so notice the time period, and then when Isaiah comes into play, right? So then if we skip down, you have Micah. Let's see, Micah, and then you have Nahum. Again, same time around Isaiah. And then, okay, so Zephaniah, okay, remember that last one, and now we have Jeremiah, okay? So the other three, what's called the minor prophets, notice this, well, let's see, they don't have them here. Where's Zechariah? Huh. Oh, yeah, Zechariah should be around here someplace. Oh, here it is. Here's Zechariah and Haggai, okay, post-Babylonian exile after they returned from the 70 year that Daniel prophesies. Okay, now I know this is kind of a different one. I wanted to show you a timeline because this is how we're going to now. This is how we're going to study then the Bible. Let's kind of go back. So what we're doing now is we're studying the minor prophets before the major prophet of Isaiah. Okay, so from a timeline, okay, we started with Joel, then Amos, then Jonah, and then we're going to go to Isaiah, okay, and then we hit and after Isaiah, we hit Hosea, Obadiah, and then Micah and Nahum, okay. Now, the reason why we're doing that way is because I want you to get the um, prophetic voice, the prophetic voice of the time. So in other words, it'll make more sense to hear what what Hosea is prophesying, and then when we get to Isaiah, what he is prophesying, the voice, and then you'll see a stark difference in Jeremiah because Jeremiah is actually going through the death of the nation. Okay. All right. So we'll pick this up in the next study. Don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. Till next time, I'll see you in the next study.